Everyone is creative.
A creative life requires
bravery and action,
honesty and hard work.
We're here to support and celebrate
and encourage you to make the things that you love.
We believe in the power of community.
We believe in giving a damn.
We believe in face-to-face connections,
in learning from others,
in hugs
and high fives.
We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose,
confident they will inspire one another,
and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world.
Everyone
is welcome.
The theme, as we've mentioned a few times, is mentor. Let me read you some thoughts. No one is born with all the knowledge and skills they'll need to thrive in life. That's why kids go to school. But we shouldn't stop learning once we graduate. We need to find new teachers. A mentor doesn't have to be an expert or the top of their field. Just someone who's been there and done that before. Someone to show you the way and offer a bit of advice and encouragement. Ideally, they're willing to make introductions and mention your name when you're not in the room. Being a mentor is considered a way of giving back. But mentors get just as much out of the relationship, if not more. Beyond the satisfaction of helping, mentors also learn from their mentees, from a fresh way of looking at established practices to tackling new problems with a beginner's mind. So, ask for help. We all could use a guide as we climb. Find your mentors and be a mentor in return. Your plans for growth are more likely to succeed if they include lifting others up as you rise. So, Ryan Ma, hey? Who would have thought? Ryan's been on the stage as a host. He's been at the back of the room behind the cameras. He's been at the side of the room on a camera. He's been all around this engine for a long time. But you read his bio, so we'll skip that. There's a few things, though, that our event page didn't tell you. We go back about 2 decades now, maybe more actually now, when I was a designer running my firm, and he was a new designer, fresh out of school and eager. Fresh-faced is the term, I guess. And he was one of the first people to put their hand up when I started to share this wild idea about bringing Creative Mornings to Canada. Before the first coffee was even poured, Ryan was there to help and became an important member of the leadership team for many years. In fact, he leveled up his own life right here, too. He met his wife, who was also a volunteer at Creative Mornings, and they made our first, not last, Creative Mornings baby, a now 7-year-old named Elliot. As a filmmaker, Ryan chases stories with the curiosity of a kid and the craft of a master. You probably have heard of his feature, Arthur Erickson, Beauty Between the Lines, his series Saltwater City or Postcards From, but you probably don't know that he once spent many months, more than a year, I think, shooting entirely in the nude. I mean, literally filming a documentary nude. Or that he's eaten boiled moose anus smoked over pine needles. All in the name of documentary truth. And long before that, in grade 7, he won a cross-town speech contest and scored a free lunch at Anton's Pizza. He's still eating leftovers. If you know, you know. Clearly, the man's been trading words for noodles. And now, for awards, for a long time. What I love most about Ryan is that he lives our July theme mentor every single day. He lifts emerging filmmakers through the National Screen Institute. He answers plenty of late night how do I texts with patience. He always shows up. He's generous, loyal, wicked smart, and he's always there when a friend or community calls. So buckle up for some visual storytelling wisdom, a few surprises, and the unmistakable warmth of one of Creative Mornings' original believers. Ryan Ma!
Morning, everybody. just gonna put this here. Holy, that was an intro. Now I've got to live up to it. Okay, well, here we go. I just want to make sure. Okay, well, like Mark said, I mean, it's such a full circle moment to be here. I mean, like Mark, reached out to me and it's like, do you want to be a part of this? And I had no idea the impact and the paths it provided me. And this photo was actually one of the very, it was from the very first Creative Mornings talk. I just want to talk really quickly. There was so much grassroots energy, you know, and there was so many friendships you could tell that were being made there. And you know, I haven't been to Creative Mornings in a while, and it's amazing to see that it still has that energy from day one. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to all the volunteers and our sponsor, because I've been where you are. Okay. So just a little bit of myself. I'm a documentary filmmaker, and it's my dream job. I mean, this photo here was taken 5 days after I left my day job, and I had no idea that I was going to go on this journey. My business partner convinced me to just leave my day job and let's just make movies. And I said, "You're crazy, but here we go." And I'm really fortunate. I think the thing that I love about my job is I get to go on a lot of adventures. But I think more importantly is I get to meet people that have waited almost their entire life to have a camera crew show up. And, you know, they just want to get their story off their chest. And I get to do that. And it's such a privilege to do that. And it's amazing. It's amazing. But with that being said, you know, I didn't know. There was a point in my life that I had no idea what I was doing. And this is probably back in 2005. I was studying at Emily Carr, and I was in the design program. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a designer, but I'm like almost finished at this point. So we're going to wrap it up. But I was good with the camera. And I don't know if anyone had been to the Emily Carr campus on Grandma Island. There's a small little letterpress shop room. And the door was always closed. The lights were always off. And I was like, this is really cool. I you know, want to learn how to maybe print, and my instructor at the time, his name was Ken Hughes. He said, you should just call this guy. His name is Jim Rimmer, and he lives in New West. And so I did, and didn't do any research. I just, you know, emailed him, and he gave me his address, and this is where the address took me. And you look, and you're like, is this 1906 or 2005, right? Like, where am I? And this is where he lived. So, and in the email it says, come around the side. So I did. And this house is amazing. It's just this patchwork house. It's standing, you know, kind of. And, you know, you go down and here's the entrance to this door, and it was open. And you walk through the door and you find Jim there. And he was like the nicest guy. He gave me a coffee. And you stand in this room, and it's just like filled with like heavy printing presses, paper, inks, and you could just feel like the weight and the kind of the gravitas of the work that he did and the stuff that surrounded him. It just felt so like permanent. And I was just floored. I was like, who is this guy, right? And so for those who don't know who he was, he's a prolific graphic designer, and I could go on and on and on about, you know, his achievements. But I'm going to pick my personal 3 favorites pieces of work that he did. He designed the Murchie's hot chocolate, the little cottage carving. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I grew up as a kid drinking this, so I was like, oh my God, you made this. He also designed the logo for the rock band Heart, which is pretty badass. He was also a lover of jazz, and he designed this jazz album cover, which he also plays on. But not only was he an amazing graphic designer, he was also a prolific type designer and illustrator. I mean, this is a sample. He was just doing this chalk drawing for me of just saying like, this is how cursive, and I was like, this is beautiful. You know, you could just frame this. And here's just like a little detail of some of his lino cuts he would do. You know, he knew his stuff. He was really skilled. But you know, also he was a teacher, and he taught at all the schools, like at Emily Carr, Cap, Langara. It goes on and on. And he was just so kind to let people, even classrooms would have field trips to his home, and they would bonk their head on the ceiling because it was so low. You know, many students, I did. But he was just that kind of guy. And so, he was just so passionate in wanting to share what he loved the most. And of course, he was just a prolific letterpress printer. I mean, a craft that he started at a really young age to master. And that was a passion of his. So I'm standing here in front of him on our first meeting, and it was the first time, I just felt like I need to film you. I don't know what I'm doing. I need to make a movie. I don't know. I need to record. I know nothing about producing, direct, nothing of that stuff. Don't know how to light. I know I need a camera. I need a light and a microphone. And so I saved up all my money, and over the next 2 years, I would spend every Sunday with him as much as I could, and I would just film. And and at the time, of course, I never studied film, but this would be my foray into film school, was just to hang out with him. And while I parachuted into filming him, the kind of where he was in his life was he would be printing his basically piece de resistance, which was Tom Sawyer. And he spent basically his entire life, and I'll get into it, making 100 copies of this really beloved book. So after spending time with him, there's a few lessons that I learned. And the first lesson I learned was to fall in love. So you ask yourself, okay, Jim, you've spent your entire life, 50, 60 years, why would you want to print Tom Sawyer, like, of this story, of all the stories? And you could just buy this book, it's available. And obviously, that wasn't the point, It's a story that was so meaningful to him because in Tom Sawyer, he hung out in the Mississippi River, and he was this, kid on adventures. And that was Jim's life. He grew up, in the probably 30s and 40s. And the Fraser River was his equivalent. And we went there several times to his favorite spot. And he would tell me stories if he'd build boats out of like random driftwood. And he was a real life Tom Sawyer. And that's kind of really reflected in his persona. And so I was like, this is amazing that you are dedicating your life to this one story. And it taught me that you really have to fall in love with, if you're going to spend your life on a topic, this better mean a lot to you. But while doing that, I thought to kind of put myself in his shoes, I was going to learn how to letterpress print as well, just so I could see how hard it was. And I got the bug, and I loved doing it. So much so that he helped me set up my own shop. So months later, there's a 5,000-pound press that shows up in my mom's driveway. And I went off the deep end. And my mom's there. She's like, what the f is on this driveway here? So every Sunday, I would go film him for a little bit, and then he would teach me how to do this printing. And I wasn't a very good printer, but I had a lot of fun. And I learned that it is so hard to register, print, there's so many places you can make a mistake, but he was so good at it. And it gave me an appreciation for what he did. But, on the topic of falling in love, I think that is really true to the work that I do, because if there's a subject that I want to make a film on, I have to fall in love with you. And I've had many love affairs. I've fallen in love with a wrestler and Indigenous chef, and I also fell in love with Arthur Erickson, which is the last feature that I did. And it's so crucial, because if you're going to spend, I didn't spend 60 years making Arthur Erickson, I spent 2, but it makes all the difference. Lesson 2, mastery means loving the hard parts. And Jim was a Renaissance guy. And I think a lot of people may not realize is he was an amazing type designer. So his typefaces he would start as the little doodle. You just draw them out, they look beautiful. And then he would make the lead type from it, which is crazy, because you have to make like a little mold with this like crazy contraption, and then there's a machine that shoots lead into this thing and pops it out, and then you set it into a machine, right? Make sure you don't have any typos, and then you print with this machine that could take your hand off, and that's like that could take forever to print. And it was amazing to see that. And I just think, like, why, Jim, are you going down to, I mean, he would make books from scratch, and the one thing he didn't do was make the paper. And I'm sure if he could, he would. And the entire time I was thinking, like, you know, the minutia detail that you're diving into is incredible. And I think what he loved about it and what it taught me was the holistic process. When you can dial in to that degree, it really becomes your piece of work, right? And I think that really rubbed off on me, because filmmaking and documentary filmmaking is honestly not that much different. As a doc filmmaker, your budgets aren't massive. You have to do everything yourself. You know, you come up with the idea, you direct it, you're your craft services, you're cleaning up you're loading the truck. You don't have extra help. And it's the same, you know, we're dialing in the color, we're dialing in the sound. Something I hate doing is cost reports and accounting. It's the worst, but you need to know these things, because in the grand scheme of things, everything belongs where it should. Just like Jim, everything had to fit in, because it all comes together at the end. Luckily, I'm at the stage where I don't have to do everything, thank God. And I want to give a quick shout out to the team I work with. I'm so fortunate to work with. Here's a quick crew shot. There's me. The guy standing next to me is actually a subject of a feature film we're developing. His name is Wayne Wong, and he is the father of freestyle skiing. He's an incredible guy. Joanna's standing next to him, who we love. She's a producer. Danny's my business partner, our co-director. Leah, who's here, is our EP and kind of holds the house of cards together. Cindy, who edited Arthur, she's an amazing editor. We love working with her. And Rich, doing the silly face in the back, is our ride or die DP. So I'm really fortunate to work with these people. Lesson 3, obsess over the details, is what Jim really taught me. So this is a beautiful typeface he designed called Albertan. And he would show me how he would make it. He would do the doodle, and then he would use this ancient computer from 1800s. It was it had this you'd use this pen and you would mark it. It would just drive you nuts if you saw someone use it. It's so painful. But he would digitize these typefaces, and you can actually purchase and use these. But his obsession of the details is what made his work stunning. And here's a shot of an illustration he did, and he was also an amazing illustrator. And I asked him, I was like, what color are you going to do your single color illustrations? And he said to me, well, Tom Sawyer, the story happens in the Mississippi, and I want to fly down to the Mississippi River, take a sample of the mud, and that color of the mud is going to be the color of my illustrations. And I was like, yes. And I said, nobody's going to know that, and no one's going to notice these details. But that was the kind of artist he was. He was doing details that nobody but he would know. And and again, that's what rubbed off on me, because when I'm on set, I'm fiddling with things that no one's gonna know that there was an extra cup in the corner, or the light was shifted 2 degrees, or nobody. But I guess as a crazy obsessive, creator, that's what we do. And we live in those details. And so, like I said, he's constantly fiddling with type. I'm constantly fiddling with timelines in our edit suite. If I could tell you how many times my wife would say, because she'll hear me editing and I'll be listening to, 60 seconds 1,000 times, because I just got to nail the timing, and she's, I'm going to jump out the window. But that's what we do. And, and it's all worth it in the end. Once you hear some stills from a series I did a while ago, it's all worth it in the end. So anyways, after several Sundays, we actually started spending less time together. And I wanted to record him reading Tom Sawyer to kind of narrate the whole thing. But he had developed this pain in his throat, and it turned out to be severe cancer. And it was really upsetting. I remember him telling me this. And I think what was more upsetting was what he told me was he spent his entire life mastering graphic design, illustrating, type make. The process is crazy. He spent his entire life, 70 years. And he told me he just felt like he was just getting started because, you're just like, you've already made Creative Nirvana. You've done it. But he felt like it took him so long to do it. And it breaks my heart. But I know that if he was still around today, I can only imagine where he would have taken his craft. So, like I said, by this time I'm seeing him a lot less, and I can't remember. It was like a Thursday. I called his wife Alberta. That typeface you saw just previously is a typeface dedicated to his wife. And I said, at this point, he's like, I probably see him like once, maybe a month. Things were pretty bad, and he was bedridden at this point. And I called his wife, and I said, hey, it's like a Thursday, and I was like, hey, can I come by on Sunday just to say hi? And she's like, no, you got to come now. I was like, okay. And it was at my day job still, so I left after work. And I remember it was at nighttime, and so I go and feelings. I go. And his bed is facing the window. And by this point, I don't know how much levels of consciousness he had, because he'd been really hit hard. And his wife left the room, and I had a moment to spend some time with him. And I held his hand, and he wasn't responding at all. His eyes were closed. He was breathing. And I just said how much it meant to me. And, I told him about my week, and sorry. And I told him how much he really paved the way for me. And by this point, a doctor had come in to administer some medication, and I had to leave. And I turn around, and this is like this old, dilapidated house that's about to fall apart. And I go for the door, and for whatever reason, I can't open the door. I can't leave. And I felt really embarrassed. I was like, oh, sorry, can someone help me with this door? And I look over my shoulder, and his bed is facing the window. And I just see a hand waving, and it's his hand waving to me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And at that moment, the door opened, and I left, and I cried the whole time home. It was incredible. And the next day he passed away. So I was really fortunate to share those last moments with him. Mentors can come from the most unexpected places. And I had no idea my little newest visit would change my life. And sometimes in a presentation like this, in hindsight, you realize how big an impact they really had on you. And everyone's asking what happened to the movie. I never finished the film. And, part of it wasn't so much finishing the film. It was really a place where I could make my mistakes, hang out with the master, and learn from him. But I'm really thrilled that I could be here to share his story with you, because that's what the film would have done. So that's it. Thank you for listening.
Okay. You said, if Jim were still here today, who knows where his creative journey would have gone, or something like that. Right? This is where it went. Jim is here. Right? It's the classic, we never died. Legacy is who picks it up and carries it on. And like you said, that film didn't need to be finished. All the subsequent films you've made are Jim's film. Everybody take a breath. As tears roll down my cheek. I also knew Jim, and he was wonderful. Now I'd like to have everybody turn to make a little group, make little pockets. These are movable chairs. You can turn around and spend the next 5 or 10 minutes discussing with your neighbor the role, maybe what you heard, what you want to hear. We get more time with Ryan in a minute. What questions do you want to ask him? But also, where has mentorship shown up for you, or where do you want to find mentorship, and what could that look like? We'll be back with you in just a little bit, okay? The creative community is not a creative economy without the Hemlocks and all of the businesses that invest in this. Tin Raganet is here. Where's Tin? Stand up, come on. That beautiful young artist did the illustration of Ryan that then got printed by Mitchell Press. Scott Gray, stand up. And there's Scott Gray from Mitchell, who printed them for us. What a family, right? Like, what an amazing thing. All these people doing these generous acts. And you all get a postcard that you can send to a friend and say, I went to this amazing thing. You should come with me next month. Okay, come on back up here, Ryan. I'm going to...
Maybe I'll just do this.
Check. So, this is your chance to ask him all the questions you've been wanting to know, right? The deep questions. Who's got one? Who can start us off with a good one? Okay, here we go.
Okay,
Everybody
just
stand up and tell him your name so Ryan knows who you're talking about.
Hi, my name is Amanda Palmer.
Hi, Amanda.
One of my questions is I mean, you referenced that you didn't didn't make the film, but is there a story that you regret having gotten away from you, or something that you're still chasing?
That's the one. It is. It's hard. I mean, I spent so much time on it. I don't know, countless. It was shot on HDV tapes, which I hate, and there's such a pain to digitize. It's all possible, and I think it's hard to finish because I'm just so close to the story, and and life gets in the way, and you have kids, and then you've got the juggles of running your own shop. So one day.
I don't want to say this. Did the story about that guy that we tried to connect to, is it coming together, maybe going to happen? Did the connection happen because I couldn't make it happen?
I can't remember.
Michael Bublé? That guy?
Oh, no, we never.
It didn't happen?
No, we never got that. No. Anyways, that's something else.
Okay. Ryan's always cooking up these incredible stories, and then he'll say, hey, do you know Michael Bublé? I'm like...
I'm Robin, Deputy Maurice. I wanted to find out in Beauty Between the Lines, were there parts that you couldn't fit in? Is there any more to it?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question. So you saw the movie. Yeah. So I worked on a feature film about Arthur Erickson. And real quick recap, we had unprecedented access to his archival material. It was like a crazy Aladdin's cave of stuff. And back to saying is there's stuff that I couldn't put in the movie, and there was so much archival that it was actually like stress inducing, because you're just like, I spent weeks and weeks, and there was some stuff in there I wish I could have put in. I couldn't. He actually had a personal autobiography that he wrote, and we could only get a little bit of it in there. And it's so hard to tell a life story like his in 80 minutes. So that was a huge challenge. We just had to cut stuff out to keep the story going. But yeah.
What's one Arthur Erickson story that we should all know?
That you should all know?
This is amazing because we're right outside.
Yeah, that's right.
We're just standing in front of Arthur Erickson's masterpiece.
Yeah.
But what is one
factoid about him?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, where we planted where we wanted to tell his stories, there was one obituary that was written about him. that he was a gay man, and that the love of his life his name was Francisco Corbaz, and he's rarely mentioned. And he was his life partner, but also his co-creator and collaborator. And so Arthur would design the building, and Francisco would design the inside, and that was this kind of yin and yang relationship that they had, and that's what we explore in the film. And I think Francisco's story is so critical to Arthur, and our film was the first one that really brought that to light.
Thanks so much. I'm Dave. Would you be able to speak to kind of an ideal quantity of, because I think that's inspired all of us to go find a mentor and go be a mentor. So can you speak a little bit about, would you have a mentor, and would you be a mentor and be mentoring at the same time? How many mentors would you find? How many would you find to mentor? Like what? Because less is more, right? Sometimes. So go.
That's a really great question. And this is just my personal approach, is like, a mentor to me, I don't think anyone actually like goes and like shakes a hand like, will you be my mentor? I think for me it's kind of like, do they? Okay, I don't. But in the sense that where I do is like, if I find someone that's like so knowledgeable, or I'm just like floored by what they do, and I just want to learn more about them, and if they're willing to share, that's kind of, this kind of informal mentorship for me. And I'm constantly learning from others. And then I've had several filmmakers and such that have come to me, and I provide whatever advice I can to some of those. But yeah, in terms of the quantity of number, I mean, it's hard to say. It's as many that will inspire you, and if you can inspire others, then go for it.
I would add that as somebody who does get asked to mentor, some of my mentees are in the room. One kind of magical approach is to find that person you would like to learn from. And if you mention the word mentor, things can go terribly awry, right? Like, whoa, mentoring, whoa, that's a relationship. And ask them for a mentor moment. May I have 2 hours of your time for a mentoring consultation? And then if it turns into a relationship, that's fine. But I think, if a small bite of advice from somebody who's been there and done it, it can happen. It doesn't need to be, their deathbed.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm Shiraz. I'm the curator of Grandparents Film Festival. My question is about during your own life, since the birth, you always had mentors, parents, siblings, and so. The question is, I feel that mentorship is often profession related. If you want to be a teacher, you look at your teachers as a mentor. So can you have more than one mentors, and then say if you choose an elder person as a mentor?
Yeah.
Which I want to thank you for.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Are there other mentors like the professional workspace? I mean, for sure. I mean, my grandfather is definitely one of them. He was an immigrant that came here, raised 4 kids in like a single apartment in East Van. And I say to myself, I can barely keep things together with 1 kid. I don't know how he did it with 4, working at the sawmill. It's completely bananas. And and I'm still not him, and he's still alive. My grandfather's like 98, which is crazy. Yeah. And so, yeah, definitely. Mentors can really come from any part of your life. And I think the hardest mentorship, I'm a parent. I can't even get my kid to brush his teeth in the morning. So let alone, instill these whatever I've learned on him is, it's another level.
Okay, 2 more questions. We're going to go here, and then we're going to go back there.
Hi, my name is Patricia. So imagine it's 2060, and we're still doing Creative Mornings, and your mentee comes to talk about you. What would you like that person to say?
Wow, that's a good question. Jeez. I hope they say nice things about me. Hopefully that I had time to give them, I guess. I don't know. That's a really good question. I have no, and I think that's the kind of magic about being a mentor. think, Jim, like I said, I don't think that we made this handshake and, we're good mentors. And I don't think he saw where I would take my career. And I think that's the beauty of it. You don't know where, your advice might go to have someone blossom decades later. And that's the kind of beauty of it.
I learned to cook quinoa from David Lynch, the director. So, what is going to be available, your movies for everyone who wants to learn from your mentor?
I don't know yet. I don't know when I'm going to finish the movie. It's a good question. It's you'll be the first to know here on the mailing list when I get around to it.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
My question.
Thank you. But I have one thing I will say, and Mark has always mentioned to every Creative Morning speakers that comes here, is always leave your audience with a gift. And I'm actually going to leave you with a physical gift. In this little heavy metal, it's actually a lead mold, which Jim used to use, and he would melt his type, put it in the mold, and they would sink the new lead into his machine to make new type. In there is lead type that he actually made, and you all guys can have a piece of that. There should be one for everybody in there. Should be enough. So help yourself. It's lead, so I wouldn't say put it in your cereal, but you can enjoy it as a keepsake. And that's a copy of his book that he did too. Yeah.
Okay, one last comment from the back of the room.
John.
Hi, my name is John. So to answer the question that you said about the mentee, I was mentored by the great Ryan Mana in front of you. And I couldn't express how grateful I am, even though I'm not part anymore of Black Rhino. I still have him in my heart. Everything that I know and have gathered, experienced, every time there was a mixer, every time there was a work job, every time that there was something, was like, hey, check this out. Apply, please do it, apply. And I think thanks to Ryan and Black Rhino family itself, I am who I am today. So they all are always gonna be in my heart, and I'm really appreciative about that. And thank you for everything that you have done.
Oh, thank you, John. Thank you.
Patricia, can you do me a favor? Can you get us one of the XL t-shirts and give it to John? Thank you. Ryan Ma! When you win an Academy Award, we're all going to say we knew him when he was just a guy at, Creative Mornings telling stories about...
Can I get a selfie with you here with the crowd?
Oh, God.
Come on, I got to do one of those. Well, I have to send it to Fiona. She's not here. She's not here. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you.
Okay. Quick round of applause for the volunteers. None of this happens without volunteerism. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm not going to break this one. Try. Oh my God, what's this made out of, Dave? White oak. Whoa, it's like gold. So Dave, who you heard from one of our questions, is one of our team, and he is an artist and a woodworker and has a business called, he's just called this Dave what? Okay, anyway. Dave. And he's done this beautiful piece of art. So this is me before my mentor. This is me after my mentor. And this is Ryan's. Vancouver at CreativeMornings.com. If you have any ideas or offers and you want to help us make this even better, please. And thanks again to Vancouver Art Gallery and for having us. Have a wonderful weekend, you guys. Have a really, really good weekend.